This video brought to you by jadedpainting.com. If you need your miniatures painted to a tabletop standard, check out jadedpainting.com. Hey everyone! Welcome to another painting tutorial. As always, my name is Jay, and today I'll be showing you how to paint this Nurgle themed Chaos Space Marine Sorcerer, one of the new awesome HQs for the Chaos Space Marine Army. I primed the model gray and began by base coating the entire model with castellan green, one of the very dark Nurgle-ish green colors from the Citadel range. Then, to provide a lot of depth and shading to this area, I gave pretty much the entire model, or at least all the armor, an Athonian camo shade. I used a fan brush because it's a quick and easy way to give a nice shading as it has a large surface area. And now that the model will have some depth to color, I then gave the model a highlight with Strachan green, the first layer color in the Citadel range associated with the specific base color that we chose. And as you can see, I'm basically just using an overbrush technique over the entire model and covering all the raised areas of the model, leaving the camo shade in the recesses. Also, for his garments, specifically his cloak, I'm trying to build up a very nice, quick gradient from dark greens to a light Nurgle colored green. So as you can see here, I'm just focusing on all the raised areas. This step took a little bit of time, seeing as the entire armor would be the same color. And finally, I gave the armor one more edge highlight with Nurgling green. It is perfectly named for a Nurgle-themed Chaos Sorcerer. And for this, I just focused on the very edges of the armor, anything specifically that the light would be hitting, so whatever my light source was hitting, and the very tips of his garments. As you can see here, I'm just doing a very quick edge highlight along all of his robe. The key to the step is just to take your time and make sure to get a nice, even coverage over all the edge highlights. Now that the armor is done, I started on all the red areas of the model with Mephiston Red, an excellent base color that will pretty much go over any color with relative ease. For this Mephiston Red, I'm going to paint the front part of his cloak and the gun. As I mentioned, this was a pretty quick step, seeing as it gave excellent coverage in a single step. And then next, I gave an Evil Sun's Scarlet highlight over these areas. Usually I would go over a shading, which is now actually what I did after the highlight, with a Kerberg Crimson shade. This is meant to leave a very flat and slightly dark and dirty appearance on the cloak. I then painted a lot of the gap parts in the armor, so the gap parts in the helmet, as well as the books and all the leather parts on the model with Ungor flesh. The goal was to make all these areas look really, really flesh toned, and then we're going to make them look like rotting flesh afterwards. That way, because it's Nurgle, we're going to cover rot and flesh, and that's basically the two themes of Nurgle. And as I mentioned, the goal is to make the books almost as if they are made of like human skin. When the base coat was done, I gave all of these areas a Seraphim Sepia shading. And while the shading was dried, I painted all the gaps in the armor, such as the ones in the arms, with gray liner. If you don't have gray liner, I recommend using Abaddon Black from Games Workshop. When the shade was dry, I highlighted all these flesh areas once again with Ungor Flesh, using the same color that I used for the base coat. As you can see, they really turned out to be a really nice flesh colored. And then to make them look a little bit more rotting, I gave all these areas an Athonian camo shade, which is basically the Nurgle shading. Next, I started all the metallic areas of the model with lead belcher. I decided not to use any golds for this particular model since it is Nurgle, and there's not a lot of gold on Nurgle. It's more rotting and rusted silver. So I decided to paint all of the metallic areas, including the sword, any of the chains, the trim on the armor, the gun, and all the symbols on his armor and his helmet with lead belcher. For these metallic colors, the goal is to build up to a slightly lighter tone and then to give them a rust appearance. And as you can see, this step took a little bit of time, seeing as a lot of parts on the model needed to be painted with lead belcher. As with the previous steps, the key to this particular step is make sure you get a nice even coverage over all the silver metallic areas before proceeding to the next step. Metallics can be difficult sometimes going over colors such as the greens and the reds, and you want to make sure you have a really nice even coverage and that it completely covers the base coat before giving it a shading. I also used lead belcher to paint the vents in his mask and on his backpack. And with this step nearing completion, we can turn our attention to giving some nice shading on all of these metallic areas, then giving it a rusted appearance, and finally finishing up the rest of the model.